Hi, welcome back. In the last module, we created the virtual network that we're going to use to connect our machine to. In this module, what we're going to do is take a look at creating that virtual machine and connecting it up to the network that we previously created. So we're LANet. You can find out more about us on our website or follow us on LinkedIn. So in this module, we're going to create our virtual Linux server and connect it to our network. Okay, so what we're going to do is pick out a cheap Linux server, which is the AMD B280S V2, and kind of if you do get a free number of hours per within the 12 months of this SKU as well, so it shouldn't really cost us anything. Things like the public IP address do cost a couple of dollars per month, so just there's only a small amount of cost in this demo. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to specify the image that we're going to use from the Azure Marketplace gallery. We can choose Windows or we can choose Linux. In this case, we're going to use Linux. We're not going to assign any security groups or firewall rules or anything like that at this stage. We're just going to show you this process. We're going to specify login name and password. I'm going to connect the NIC or the network interface card to the virtual network. And we'll see that how it uses the IP addressing, and we'll see the next available IP address is there. So we're going to create the VM. It will be created with a disk and a network interface card, as we can see there on the bottom right. We're going to connect it to the subnet, and we'll see the IP addresses it picks up from there as well. We're just going to use a standard Linux image. We're not going to create any security firewall rules or anything like that around it. We're going to put those in later. There's some further reading here for you as well. So to learn a little bit more about the virtual machines, all the different types and the different SKUs that are available, understand a little bit about disks as well, and all what are the components that make up the virtual machines. You can follow these links here. Okay, so let's take a look at our demo. We're going to use the latest Ubuntu server image and assign it to our network and give it a password. So first we'll go back to our resource group and create the resource that we want. In this case, it's going to be a virtual machine. So we'll just filter in the marketplace like this just to practice using the marketplace. There's many ways of doing it. So what we're going to do is just use this as a demonstration. So we're going to select Ubuntu. So we don't want like the minimal version. So we're going to use this one here. Once we get to here, we again check that we're in the right subscription in the resource group. We need to give it a name, select the correct region. We're not going to specify any high availability features or anything for this. We're just going to use the standard free-ish service at the moment. We're going to give it a password. You could use SSH keys and things as well. So make sure you can put a complex password in there. And now what we're not going to do is set up any public port access via the public. So we're going to set that up separately just so we can see how that works as a separate thing. So we're going to not assign it a public IP address and not allow any access to it initially. We're going to look at the disk configuration. And you'll see the default is a premium SSD as well, which we'll come back to. So we'll select make sure we're in the right virtual network in the subnet. And as I mentioned, we're not going to create a public IP address at the moment. So this machine is not really accessible by anyone initially. We're not going to add a load balancer either. So there's some management features that we can switch on. We're not going to do that in this case. It's kind of identity for that virtual machine. We'll leave the default for the shutdown just in case you accidentally leave it on. It will automatically get shut down at 7 p.m. every night. Okay, we've also got options to run extensions, install agents and extensions into the machine. We can also inject custom scripts as well. So that's one way of enabling a one-time script to run in that machine once it's built. But we're not going to do any of that either. But we will put our tags in as we normally do. And then we'll go and review and create that. we'll just check everything, and you'll see, oh, we've got premium disk there. So what we'll do is we'll go back and change that. We don't necessarily need a higher cost disk, so we'll just go with a standard magnetic disk. So we'll just change that, and then review and create. So the only thing in this environment that's actually going to cost us anything is the disk and the public IP address. We're not going to enable any advanced features. Okay, now let's take a look at the resource group. We can see our NICs there already. If we do a refresh, we'll see the other objects, which is the VM and the OS disk. So let's click on that VM as well. Okay, now it's completed. Let's take a look at the VM. We can see the properties of the virtual machine, such as the status, the type, the size, and we can see it's got no public IP address as well. And if we scroll down further, we'll be able to see the virtual network that we connected to as well, which is the VNet that we created earlier. So all the options that have been enabled. So we've noticed there that's the IP address that we were expecting, because it's the fourth one available in the range that we used, and it's from that subnet. So the fourth IP from the 0 at least is .4. Okay, so that's our virtual machine. One thing to make a note of here is the state of the machine. When you want to shut it down, it's best to shut it down from the portal or the command line, and it will go into the state of shutting down, and it will say stopped and deallocated. If it says stops, it usually means it's been stopped from inside the machine, and you'll still be getting charged for it. So make sure you stop it from properly, and it will say deallocated, which means the charges have stopped, or you'll still pay for the disk. Okay, so that was our server. So some bonus reading and extra things you can look at once we get further down the line is learn a little bit about load balancing. So if you're creating web servers, for example, you wouldn't, and if it's like a critical business system, you wouldn't necessarily rely on just the one server. You'd have multiple servers, and you'd put a load balancer in front of it. And in that case, your load balancer would have the public IP address, and your back-end servers would not have a public IP address, so they'd only be reachable via the load balancer. So you can test that out by creating the load balancer, assigning a backend pool with 2 virtual machines, send the traffic to the load balancer instead, and then practice seeing where which server it hits. So you can do that by creating a web page inside the servers just to show maybe 2 different things, whether it's a server name or something else. And once you stop one of the servers, you should see the load balancer automatically send you to the other server. So just get a bit of practice with load balancing and understand why that could be useful. Okay, so that's a module for the creation of the VM. We looked at creating a basic virtual machine and connect it to our virtual network. In the next section, we'll create the public IP address and DNS configuration.